The following presentation is brought to you by Discovery Education, leading the world of digital and video learning. Discovery Education. Connect to a world of learning.
Southeast Asia truly is one of the most fascinating regions of the world. It's a place of tremendous contrasts, where huge modern cities, with their bustling streets and crowded shops, often lie just a short distance away from tiny villages where people follow a slower, more traditional way of life. Southeast Asia is located to the south of China, to the east of India, and to the north of Australia. Most of the region has a tropical or subtropical climate because the equator passes right through it. That's why it's such a perfect place for raising rice, for collecting milky latex sap from rubber trees, and for watching specially trained elephants at work in the jungle. Southeast Asia is a part of our planet noted for its many islands, which are surrounded by warm saltwater seas and bays, where coral reefs and beautiful fish abound. It is also a place with many diverse cultures, where many different languages are spoken, and where many different religions are practiced. So it's not surprising that Hindu temples, Muslim mosques, Taoist temples, Christian churches, and Buddhist temples are all fairly commonplace here. Unfortunately, the Southeast Asia region faces some serious problems too. Poverty is quite severe in several of its nations, and people really have to struggle to survive. Also, huge tracts of forest are being torn up and burned to create new farms and tree plantations to supply the region's growing population. The smoke produced from burning the forests and farm fields causes severe air pollution at certain times of the year that often affects far distant parts of the world. And of course, the ongoing destruction of large areas of natural habitat is endangering many of the region's native species, such as orangutans and proboscis monkeys. Overfishing and water pollution have harmed many of the area's aquatic ecosystems too. But in spite of its numerous problems, these days, Southeast Asia is a place that's changing quite rapidly, in ways that make it a very important part of the world to understand. Altogether, more than 600 million people, roughly about 8% of the Earth's total population, live in the Southeast Asia region, nearly twice the number of people that live in the United States. There are 9 main countries in Southeast Asia. The first is Vietnam, a long, narrow country that lies along the Pacific Ocean, just to the south of China. Vietnam has a population of 89 million people and has a communist government. The second nation is Laos, which lies just to the west of Vietnam. It is a nation noted for its rugged mountain ranges. Laos has a population of 7 million people and is the only country in Southeast Asia that lacks a seacoast. Laos is a communist country too, and people's incomes here are quite low. The third country is the Kingdom of Cambodia. It is a poor nation that lies directly south of Laos that is famous for its many ancient temples. Cambodia has a population of 13 million people. At one time, Cambodia, along with Laos and Vietnam, were united in a single colony called French Indochina. The fourth nation in Southeast Asia is the Kingdom of Thailand, which lies to the west of both Cambodia and Laos. Thailand has one coast on the Pacific Ocean and another on the Indian Ocean. Thailand is home to 68 million people and is the only nation in Southeast Asia that was never colonized by Europeans. The fifth nation in the region is Myanmar, a country previously known as Burma, which lies along the Indian Ocean to the west and north of Thailand. Myanmar is home to 54 million people, and like Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia, is a primarily Buddhist nation. Myanmar was once a British colony. Today, it is a military dictatorship and has the highest level of poverty in Southeast Asia. The sixth country is Malaysia, which is divided between the southernmost portion of the Asian continent known as the Malay Peninsula and the northern part of the large island of Borneo. Malaysia has a population of 26 million people and is officially a Muslim country. Malaysia was once ruled by Great Britain as well as the Netherlands, and today it is a fairly prosperous country. The seventh main country in the Southeast Asia region is the Republic of the Philippines, a nation made up of numerous islands located about 1,000 miles to the east of Vietnam. 94 million people live in the Philippines. Most of them are Christians, and most are rather poor. The eighth country is Indonesia. It consists of around 18,000 islands that extend all the way from one side of the region to the other. Indonesia is the most populous nation in Southeast Asia and is home to 230 million people. It is also the world's largest Muslim country. For many centuries, Indonesia was a colony of the Netherlands called the Dutch East Indies. Last but not least, the ninth major country is Singapore, a tiny city-state on an island just 15 miles across that is located off the tip of the Malay Peninsula. Singapore was also once a British colony. Today, Singapore's 5 million citizens are some of the wealthiest and best educated people in the world. The Mekong River is undoubtedly one of the most important geographical features of the Southeast Asian region. It is the 11th largest river in the world, and the lives of millions of people depend on it. This mighty river begins in the high plateaus of Tibet in China and flows nearly 3,000 miles into the South China Sea, which is part of the Pacific Ocean. After leaving China, the Mekong passes through 5 Southeast Asian countries: Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Many of these countries lack good highway and railroad systems, so naturally, the river is used extensively for transporting both goods and people. That's why it is quite common to see riverboats and barges piled high with all sorts of goods, as well as numerous water taxis that carry passengers to the towns and villages along the river. A lot of the families that live on the Mekong River own small boats, which are their main form of transportation. Some are powered by engines, but many depend on muscle power and are simply rowed to get from place to place. The Mekong is even home to a number of floating markets, like this one in Vietnam, where people come by boat to buy or sell a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. Some people live in the larger boats and rarely set foot on land. Others live in floating villages. And many live in houses along the riverbanks that are built on stilts that rise above the waterline. Fish are a mainstay of the diet in Southeast Asia, and that's why on the Mekong River, you'll see people fishing almost everywhere you look. The Mekong River is home to hundreds of species of fish, some of which can grow to be quite large. Fish farming is a popular business among some of the river dwellers. They build pens under their floating houses to hold the fish. They make food for them from scrap fish parts and flour. The fish are fed through a trap door in the floor and are harvested through the same door once they have grown to be a large enough size. Today, the Mekong River is under a lot of strain. The untreated sewage and farm runoff that pour into the river at many points spread waterborne diseases. The nutrients they contain also encourage the growth of algae, which in turn leads to a loss of oxygen in the water, and low oxygen levels kill fish. Another problem facing the Mekong River is that large dams in China are impeding its flow and interfering with migration routes of several fish species, making it difficult for them to spawn. Lower water levels have also disrupted river transportation and limited the amount of irrigation water available to raise crops. Nearly all of the people that live in the Southeast Asian countries bordering the Mekong River are Buddhists. They follow a very distinct branch of the Buddhist religion known as Theravadan Buddhism. The word Theravada literally means the ancient teaching or the teaching of the elders, because it resembles the earliest forms of Buddhism. The Buddhist religion is based on the teachings of an Indian prince named Siddhartha Gautama, who is more commonly known as the Buddha or the Awakened One. The Buddha lived in northeastern India over 6,000 years ago, so the images you see of him today are often quite different from one another. The Buddha taught that through the practice of meditation, generosity, compassion, and discipline, people could achieve nirvana, a blissful state in which the suffering caused by the cycle of birth, old age, death, and rebirth is finally ended. Over the centuries, Buddhism moved eastward from India and took root in Southeast Asia. Buddhist temples in this part of the world are easily recognizable because they all have high, steep roofs, are painted in bright colors, are loaded with religious artwork, and are usually adorned with quite a lot of gold. Special religious buildings called stupas, like this one in Myanmar, are sometimes constructed near the temples to house holy relics. Stupas are also packed with religious statues filled with written prayers that serve as offerings. Every Theravadan Buddhist temple is unique. The temples tend to serve individual neighborhoods and are built for the most part with money contributed by the local people. In addition to being places of worship, the temple complexes usually provide housing for the monks as well. The monks teach, answer religious questions, and perform ceremonies. They also take care of the temple grounds, making sure that they are kept clean and attractive. The monks also oversee the creation of new works of art for the temples. Many monks learn to read and write at Buddhist schools because in this part of the world, it is common for parents to send their young sons off to live at a temple for a while to learn more about their religion. Here we see a group of young monks who have been assigned the task of softening up an animal hide so it can be used on the temple's new drum. Theravadan Buddhist monks choose to lead lives of poverty and have few possessions. This means that they must go out to the streets with their begging bowls each morning to get something to eat. Usually the monks don't have to travel far, because the local people tend to line the streets outside the temples at dawn every day with baskets of fresh food. In addition to Theravadan Buddhism, Hinduism is also widely practiced in Southeast Asia, but has fewer followers. Hinduism is the oldest major religion in the world. It has no single founder. Instead, It developed many thousands of years ago in India from various local traditions and beliefs. Hindus worship many gods and goddesses, all of whom represent different manifestations of the same supreme god, Brahman. These sacred deities are worshipped because they are believed to aid in a person's religious salvation. For example, Ganesha, the elephant-headed god seen here, is believed to remove troubling obstacles on the spiritual path, while Hanuman, the monkey god, is worshipped for his strength and serves as a protector from evil forces. Inside Indian-style Hindu temples, like this one in Singapore, priests oversee religious ceremonies that honor the gods with sacred offerings and music. And after the ceremonies are over, the priests bless the worshippers as well. Hindus believe that the spirit or soul of living things, which they call the Atman, is eternal and is reincarnated into a new body after death. Hindu religious practices are aimed at achieving an understanding that each personal soul belongs to the one supreme spirit, Brahman. The Hindu religion reached Indonesia from India about 2,000 years ago. And even though Hinduism has mostly been replaced by Islam in that nation, it is still going strong on the island of Bali, where it is practiced by nearly 4 million people. Balinese Hinduism is interwoven with art and ritual and lacks much of the traditional focus on reincarnation that is emphasized in Indian Hinduism. Instead, it is more concerned with pleasing local spirits and those of one's ancestors, because these deities are thought to be capable of causing both good and harm. The Balinese people place great emphasis on making beautiful offerings to the spirits to keep them happy. They make offerings at temples and shrines and at all kinds of other sites, such as on sidewalks, in doorways, in family homes, and out in the countryside among the rice fields. Typically, the simple ceremonies include lighting incense and offering food and drink to sacred images. Traditional Balinese plays are often based on Hindu tales from an ancient holy book called the Ramayana. The play being performed here tells the story of Hanuman, the monkey god, who helps the hero Rama defeat his enemies. Hanuman does so by getting his earthly monkey relatives to rescue Rama's wife from the island where she is being held captive by the Monster King. Balinese Hindu temples like this one are called puras, and they are very unique. Unlike the tall Indian-style temples found in Singapore and Malaysia, the temples in Bali are designed to be completely open-air places of worship. Every Balinese Hindu belongs to a particular temple based on their family descent or the neighborhoods in which they live. Puras are places in which religious activities take place in a very informal atmosphere, so worshippers come and go pretty much as they please. Hundreds of years after Hinduism reached Indonesia, a great Hindu civilization called the Khmer Empire began to take shape in what is today Cambodia. Construction of its capital, the city of Angkor, started about 1,200 years ago and continued for 4 centuries. Angkor was the largest pre-industrial city in the world. In fact, it covered an area of almost 400 square miles and may have been home to 1 million people. The Khmer kings who lived at Angkor ruled over a vast area of land that reached from Vietnam to China, all the way to the Indian Ocean. The more than 100 stone temples one sees at Angkor today are all that remain of that magnificent capital city, because its many thousands of wooden buildings have long since decayed. The official state temple of the Khmer Empire, called Angkor Wat, seen here, was built about 900 years ago to honor the Hindu god Vishnu, and is said to be the largest religious building in the world. Today, the ruins of the great city of Angkor are Cambodia's main tourist attraction, and people come from all around the world to admire its architecture, to marvel at the fabulous carvings that adorn their walls, and even to enjoy traditional Cambodian music while wandering through the streets and passageways of this incredible ancient city.